right, we're back. Hello, everybody. Welcome to season 2 of the Grappling Monthly Podcast. I'm very excited to be joined today with my man, Jean-Simon.
Nice to see you, brother.
Thank you for joining me, man.
Absolutely.
We're going to get into a whole bunch of interesting topics, but Jean-Simon is a well-decorated judo athlete, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt, judo black belt, and part owner of Bait Apparel, which I'm very excited to get to know a little bit better and to hear all about. So this episode is also sponsored by Red Shield. So our friends at Red Shield producing high quality pre-workouts that come in a wide variety of flavors. Definitely look them up. I'll post the links at the end of the episode. But yeah, so without any further ado, man, let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So man, GS bro, first of all, I know you from training at Evolution.
Yep.
I think I was maybe a blue belt when you started Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, but grappling for you starts before Jiu Jitsu, right?
I think you were a blue belt. Yeah. I started judo when I was 12. Kind of had some disciplinary issues with my teachers at school and stuff, and my mom thought it'd be a good idea to kind of give me some structure and whatnot.
Nice.
So there was a local judo club that I trained at. Started when I was 12, as I said, and then trained and competed all the way until I was like in my senior years in high school, and then discovered girls. So kind of put that aside for a while, and then I played football, etc. And then after college, I was going to the gym at the time because I was really focusing on my studies. So I didn't really want to do too many extracurricular stuff. And this one time, this is post-graduation, so I found myself started my job, and I kind of had like a more regular schedule, And I'm at the gym, and I see we had a matted area in one of the corners, and I see these two guys, and they're grappling, but they're not doing stand-up stuff. They're just doing it on the ground. They're wearing blue belts, but they seem to be wearing judo gis, like I couldn't really tell the difference at the time.
Right.
So I went to see these dudes and introduced myself, started chatting with them and stuff, because I was like, oh, like, you guys doing judo, whatever, they're like, oh no, it's Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And I was like, okay, that's cool. They're like, oh, you trained? They're like, yeah. They asked me if I trained. I told them I did judo. And I think at the time, I was a blue belt at the time in judo. Mm-hmm. And for those who don't know, that's the 5th belt. So I asked them, I was like, oh, so what belt is the blue one, And they're like, oh, it's the 2nd belt. I'm like, okay, cool. They said, do you want to train with us? And I was like, oh, that's great. That sounds awesome, So I got my gi, and I'm thinking like, I'm 21. I'm going to the gym, like I can lift weights, whatever. Like, I'm like, these guys are at the 2nd belt. I'm going to crush these dudes,
Yep.
And then proceeded to get manhandled for like 2 hours, obviously, So I started jiu-jitsu the next day.
Nice.
Luckily, the judo club I was training at eventually migrated into a BJJ academy.
Okay.
Like, they rented the space from the academy and stuff. And so once I had started training with these guys privately, whatever, and then once we migrated and joined the schools, I was able to train full time, and that was it. That's when we met. And 11 years later now. Yeah.
Nice.
So
congratulations on recently being awarded your black belt.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah. It's crazy when you get belts. You always feel like a bit of an imposter at first. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's a good feeling for sure. Yeah it's man. Nice. And
plus, you're comfortable on your feet too, so
yeah, for sure. That's a huge advantage. Yeah, as long as you're wearing a gi, you know what I mean? Like, hey,
or a jacket,
a jacket. Exactly. If I had to defend myself, I hope it's winter. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then I got better odds.
That's funny. It's funny because even in even in Los Angeles, like, it gets a little chilly evening, right? A dry wind. So most of the time, somebody's usually wearing a shirt or like
a jean jacket or something. Yeah.
So there's usually grips to be had.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah.
In the winter, forget it.
I try to stay away from any kind of altercation, for sure,
but or condoning any type of physical aggression outside of the context of the gym.
For sure, but yeah, man. Got the black belt, and so I've been teaching for a while now. And yeah, I just kind of like found a routine now where I train, try to train at least 3 times a week and then teach a couple classes here and there. So,
nice. And you're teaching judo as well.
Teaching judo as well, yeah. So I'll teach judo at headquarters once a week. So that's good. I still get to train judo a little bit, I obviously I don't feel like I'm making the same gains I would if I was doing judo full time still, but it's kept me involved in the sport, and I've been coaching some people that have been doing really well in the competitive circuit, so it's been really positive. Yeah,
nice on the judo competitive side.
Yeah, judo. Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I can't take too much credit, but
I mean,
yeah.
So viewers might not be aware, but Jean-Simon is actually the first sensei I ever had in judo. So
yeah.
Man.
I was sad we couldn't train today, man. It would have been nice to see.
Yeah, it would have been nice.
Yeah. An orange belt.
Orange belt is exactly that. It's an orange belt. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
But thankfully, there's a good program at Legacy.
Yeah, that's awesome,
Sensei
man.
Dan. Yeah.
I was really happy to find out that you were still doing the judo.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I think what's nice is that, and it's funny because I think the two of you would get along very well.
Yeah.
Your approach was like conscious of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu practitioners that were interested in judo, but that maybe didn't want to make judo their life. And that's the same thing with Sensei Dan out in Los Angeles. Like, there's a bunch of us that have stuck around probably longer than we would have if it was like, like Olympics level.
Yeah.
Training.
I think the mentality in judo typically is if you go to any kind of competitive academy, obviously is a bit more hard-nosed, a bit closer to what you would get with wrestling academies, I would say. A bit more of a grindy style, a bit more of a physical, when I teach judo, I mean, I try to stay conscious of the people I'm teaching it to, in the sense that most people, they have jobs, they don't want to get injured, etc. So I try to teach, effective judo for them in a way that's, easy to approach and stuff, but also like in a way that also respects the rule sets of jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
A lot of things we do in judo, it's like, great, I threw you for ippon. So I threw you, you fell on your back clean, but in the process, I gave you my back and now you can rear naked choke me, I'll modify techniques so that when I execute them, I can't get choked in the follow through and stuff, and the jiu-jitsu experience has really helped me with kind of like realize the shortcomings of both jiu-jitsu and of judo when it comes to those things, like I know a lot of really, really, really talented Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioners and they don't really have a great takedown game, so it's like, all right, and obviously there's a problem there. It's like, okay, so you're amazing on the floor, but you can't take it there, So, and I don't think guard pulling's very valid in any kind of actual situation either. So
you're not talking to a huge fan of guard pulling, so I have to agree with you there.
I was on Reddit once, and someone made a joke, and it really resounded with me. They're like, "Oh, they figured out the solution to perpetual energy. They put magnets on each side of Shigeru Kano's grave, and every time someone pulls guard, he rolls over. You know what I mean? And it generates energy." Anyways, I thought that was really funny. But yeah. No, I'm not a big fan of guard pulling, but I guess. I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do, right? You can't hate it. Like if it's an effective,
it's the rule set. If it's an effective strategy, right? Like I'm sure there's things, for example, in modern day judo, especially when they took out the leg grabs, right?
Since the banning of the leg grabs, yeah. I don't know. I think it's it kills me because back when I was training, leg grabs were legal and they were very effective, you know. 100%. And when you're fighting someone much larger than you, it was a great way to kind of even the playing field. You could do all sorts of ankle picks and all sorts of variations and stuff. And I think obviously when it came to like a spectator standpoint, sometimes. I think sometimes it led to a bit more stalling for sure, but you're sacrificing such a big portion of the effectiveness of the sport. Like I don't, there's rumors right now that they're going to bring it back. I know that
I think there's one organization in Japan that has legalized it.
Yeah, I think the All Japan this year, I may be wrong. I think the All Japan this year, they legalized leg grabs again. So I'm thinking that's a step in the right direction. But yeah, I really, really believe they should bring those back. I think you're losing a big portion of the effectiveness of the sport. A lot of my students a lot of people I know, because we still train with the leg grabs once in a while, but a lot of people I know that started judo post leg grab ban, basically. As soon as they face a wrestler, they're out. Exactly. Yeah. Like it really changes things, changes the dynamic, right? Like you can't be gripping the same way you would you can't take the same risk. Everything has a different opportunity cost, you know?
Yeah,
so hopefully they bring them back. I think it's a big part of the sport that's kind of lost to us. And I just think it would be healthier overall for the discipline as well, because I think the more rules you implement, the less effective the sport becomes in the long run, you know, like even some of the rules on the ground, like in a judo tournament, if you were to fall to the ground, there's certain things that you can't do that are perfectly legal in jiu-jitsu,
right.
you know?
Like post on your head.
Right. Well, that's
maybe
mostly
not advisable,
things like that. I don't have an issue with, and obviously things that are banned for the health of the well, especially with children and stuff. I think some techniques should be banned and stuff. Just, you know, but I think there's a couple things, and I won't get into the specifics, but I just think there needs to be a bit more leniency for certain techniques and stuff.
Let me ask you this. Kenny Basami, love or hate?
Hate it.
For real? I love it.
Yeah.
Damn it. It's such an equalizer.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, it's like I think
you don't have to love it.
No. I think if it's done correctly, I think it's a good technique, it's a valid technique. I just think that like too many people I just think the injury rate on that technique specifically is like pretty high. I think a lot of people. So, for example, the issue is, you know, when the technique is executed, the person is too close to the knee with their hips, and then what happens is your knee buckles and you get injuries. So, same thing happens with things like Tani Otoshi. Mm-hmm. So again, and Tani Otoshi is a super valid technique. It's an awesome combination to pull off. Like if someone's constantly blocking your hip throws or whatever, you can fake a hip throw into Tani Otoshi, and it's a great technique. The problem is, again, when people execute it, they drive their hips into the support leg, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not banned when we train at all. But every single time we do randori, I always mention it. Guys, if you're doing this technique, please do it a certain way, you know? So I think if Tani Basami was taught in a way that I don't know. I still
fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough,
Yeah.
I think it's judo's loss. I like in my background in capoeira, like there's a lot of the scissor technique.
Yeah.
I've only ever seen one pretty bad snap, but it was pretty bad. So
that's the thing. It's like it doesn't happen very often. Yeah. I don't think it would happen all that often either. You know, if it was legal, I don't think it would happen very often. I just think that like when it did, if it does happen, I think it would be pretty catastrophic. You know. Yeah.
This is shouldering the leg lock conversation, right? Like it's similar in terms of like the old attitude, which was like.
But leg locks are so effective, man. That's the thing. It's like, and it's very entertaining. Yeah. I mean, from a spectator standpoint, I think a lot of the new, hate or love it, the new meta is very much about inverting into the legs and all these things, and it creates these really dynamic scrambles, and it's like super entertaining to watch. Obviously, again, the cost of like not tapping or tapping too late is like, it's terrible.
Yeah.
But then again, like you have the opportunity to tap.
Yeah.
On a Kani Basami,
you don't. Yeah.
There's no tapping. It's just like it happens so quick. Everything's blown up, and so that really sucks. Whereas if someone doesn't respect the Z lock or whatever, and blows up their knee, I mean, that's kind of on them to some extent, right? I mean, obviously. You kind of have to understand when you're in danger, and so I think that's where the difference lies, right? Like you have an opportunity to just kind of like tap out of the situation, whatever you have. Although some heel hooks can come on pretty quick, of course, but I think knowledge will help you kind of like stay safe in those situations. Whereas a Kani Basami, I don't know if there's anything you can do to like keep yourself safe if someone executes it wrong on you. You know what I mean?
It's pretty tough. Yeah.
Plus, sometimes in the transition, it's very dynamic. Like if someone's throwing a technique on me and I'm trying to react or change the angle. Sometimes maybe I'll angle out in the incorrect way, So,
100%.
Yeah, 100%. Sorry. I know it's not the answer you wanted.
No, it's all right, man. Absolutely. I mean, I'm interested in your opinion, so that's
Yeah. I think anything that can like lead to catastrophic injury, I don't think it's worth it, especially like, I'm not saying it's an invalid technique. If ever you were to use it and it works, then fantastic, It's just like, I think when practicing the sport, I don't know, man. It's not worth it. I got to go to work the next day.
Yeah, well, that's it, right? So you found this like middle ground, right?
Yeah.
System year where you've got your judo practice, you've got Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, you're also teaching.
Yep.
How from a young, like as you described, person that is confident and then learns very quickly, like, oh, I don't know anything on the ground, and then learns that.
Yeah.
How did your mindset shift when it came time to then teach other people?
Yeah. Well, I think my mindset shifted around purple belt pretty drastically, I would say. Like
In jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, in jiu-jitsu. Yeah.
Because in the U.S., there's a purple belt in the judo system. I learned that.
There is?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I should know these things.
I mean, I didn't know until I.
Yeah. No. Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't know this. Okay, interesting. Yeah. No, in jiu-jitsu. So obviously, like, I was 21 when I started. Pretty big ego. You know, I got the blue belt really fast because jiu-jitsu blue belt because I had an existing background in judo, so I was able to kind of just like pressure pass and knee cut everybody, and I thought it was the shit, you know. And then you realize, like, and then I ended up staying at blue belt for 4 years because I had no bottom game, you know. I couldn't play guard very well and stuff, and then that was really like humbling. And then at some point, I kind of like, I realized that like my attitude was just like really problematic. It was stopping me from improving and stuff. And at some point, I started to, everybody says this, and it's like, it's the cheesiest thing ever in jiu-jitsu. Everybody's like, stop trying to win, just start trying to learn, you know? And like, it's not about winning the round. And I always thought that was like silly, you know? I'm like, but I'm getting better and I'm winning rounds, and it feels good, right? But I think around purple belt, I finally got my purple belt after 4 years of blue belt. And I think at that point I kind of realized, I'm like, okay, well, like I need to learn to just try to practice the thing I'm trying to implement into my game or whatever without having to win every round, because it's stopping me from improving. Like if you're constantly rolling, and I do this all the time still, where if I roll consistently for a while, and I always fall into these patterns, I always do the same things. It's like, okay, I go to like knee shield, invert, whatever, or I'll pass the guard in a certain way, I'll get a darce, and it's always the same sequences. And it's like, well, I haven't worked anything new, you know? So I think it's good to kind of like ban certain moves from your game for a while, or just force yourself in bad positions. So yeah, I think as soon as that attitude shift happened, and I was like, okay, cool, I'm just going to try to like learn stuff, and I'm going to try stuff. And obviously once in a while, I still had really competitive roles with people. Like I think anytime I'm rolling with someone that's much better than me, I'm not going to try new stuff. I'm going to like try your game. Yeah, I'm trying to try my A game and try to make my A game even better, maybe, you know? But if I'm rolling with someone who's like the same level, or someone who is relatively new to the sport, like I'm definitely going to try some new things and maybe put myself in trouble, try to escape from like a really late position, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
So for sure. And when that switch happened where I kind of accepted that, and it wasn't about winning every round or whatever, like, dude, I got way better, like way faster. And then that kind of transitioned to teaching as well. Like, teaching really forced me to understand techniques like from the ground up, you know, like what is it that makes this technique work? Like all the small details. I know you should angle your knee this way. I don't know what technique I'm talking about specifically, but you know, the smaller details, I think
trying to explain it to somebody else, right? Yeah,
exactly. And then when they ask questions, you need to be able to kind of give a valid answer, or maybe, you know, be able to say, you know what, I don't know the answer. You know, not let your ego kind of get in the way. Be like, let me get back to you. Let me ask someone else. Let me look it up online. Maybe I'll have some answers for you next week. You know?
Sure.
So that was a good shift for me, for sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then you get the chance to see the fruit of your labor also via like the students that are then executing those techniques.
Yeah. It's a good feeling when your students start beating you up, man. For sure. And honestly, like, people think it's like a very selfless thing, but I think you can think about it in a selfish way where it's like, look, I'm going to invest in this person who's then going to become a great training partner for myself.
100%.
You know? Like in the way that's selfish, because I'm like, I want to have better training partners. I want to train with good guys. I want to train with guys that know my game very well, that counter my game. Well, who else to counter your game better than the people who you teach your own game to? You know what I mean? So that's kind of been, it's a good feeling, and it's helped me get better. You know, I have plenty of students that like I taught, and now they'll catch me and stuff all the time. You know, and it sucks.
I mean, it sucks. That's the whole thing.
But it forces you to get better. You know what I mean? I think often, and when you train jiu-jitsu and you're not training, for example, at, you know, one of these mega teams that compete all the time and stuff, you know, if you're like a more of a regular practitioner and you train for a very long time, at some point you become a very big fish in a very small pond, you know, whereas like, relatively speaking, you're not, you know, you're good at the sport, but if you were to compete against someone who's, you know, a high level competitor, you're probably not, you know. Exactly. However, locally, you feel pretty good at the academy, you're going well, whatever. Well, like, how are you going to get guys that are going to challenge you otherwise?
Exactly,
Invest in your students, give everything you can, give them all the answers, show them all the cool stuff, man. You know what I mean?
Nice.
And then eventually you'll be able to pick their brain.
Yeah.
It happens all the time now where a student will do something. I've never even taught him this. He kind of just picked it up from a DVD or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he gets to teach me, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's a great feeling. Plus I could be selfish because now it's paying, it feels like an investment.
Yeah. You got your portfolio.
Yeah. I got my portfolio set up, man. I got compounding interest going.
Absolutely.
We'll see.
You got diversified.
Yeah, exactly.
You got big portfolio, small portfolio.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a good analogy for sure.
So I teach some privates every now and then.
Yep.
And there's one gentleman who is considerably bigger and stronger than I am.
Yeah.
And actually sought me out because he was like, I'm interested in the small man game. And I was like, who you call small? But no, just kidding, right? Like, it was funny.
Well, the more regular sized man's game.
I guess, I mean, he meant well, and I think it was quite funny.
They're always the most technical people, man. Like,
it's funny because I was like, with the appropriate pressure, like, he can definitely squish me, right? And like, there's very little I can do to stop. But then in certain cases, technique does prevail, and if I have any shot at all, it is because of technique. So he actively sought that out, and I was like, okay, cool, like, let's work with this.
Well, that's cool of him. That's cool of him.
But now, like, he's only that much deadlier now.
Yeah, dude, it's a problem.
It's a big problem for me.
I know. I was rolling with a student of mine today, and what did he catch me with? Oh yeah, I was rolling with Nick, and I taught him this, like, I call it the drunk uncle. It's literally just an Oshigari from a specific setup, but you like set your opponent up, and as you do your Oshigari, you kind of like hang on them like you were drunk and you were falling kind of thing. Right. And it's a really like strong technique, very effective technique. And he just did it to me today, like straight up on, like we bow in, we start exchanging grips, whatever. And like, as soon as he established grips on me, he just like did it instantly. And I got caught, Nice.
Nice.
And I was like, man, I regret showing you this.
Yeah.
Not really.
But not really. Yeah,
but it was cool, Yeah. So that happens all the time. But I think you should embrace that, man. That's so cool, And then again, it makes you better because you got to learn to defend it.
I was just actually talking with Dan. We kind of just reveled in the fact that, like, jiu-jitsu it's an individual like undertaking, right? Like, you yourself are deciding to put yourself through this. Yeah. At the end of the day, you're driving home either very happy or upset, or somewhere
upset most of the time. Yeah.
But it's not something that you can develop alone, right?
No, you need a village, man. Yeah, 100%.
You need training partners. You need the people that are your rivals or like competitive with you. You need people that are not as experienced, more.
Yeah. Well, I remember you used to be, so like when we were blue belts, I think you were purple maybe at that time. I don't remember, but you were like my go-to every class. Every class you were there, you were the guy I partnered up with. And then who was it? I think one time you partnered up with Laurent. I was like, oh, how could you? How could you?
I love those names.
But you need all that to say, like, you need your partners, and everybody knows this. Like, everybody has their go-to training partner. 100%. You know what I mean? And it's just like, for some reason, he's the guy who you enjoy training with the most. Either like physically, it's similar, they give you good rolls or whatever, or maybe just the vibe is good too. You know what I mean? Like, there's some people who sometimes, like, I don't know them very well, and then like we're paired up to train, and I'm just like, it's a little awkward.
Or you get the person that like decides that they want to talk the whole round, and you're like, I just want to get some reps.
Exactly. There's like that sweet spot. It's okay to have a bit of a chat for sure, but I think
the older we get, the more those chats get longer, and it's like, no. But
I think that's because jiu-jitsu for a lot of people is their third place. You know what I mean? I was reading up on this. It's like, you have like home and you have work, and most of us have home and work at the same place now. But you need that third place where it's like you're away from home but you're not at work. And then you meet a bunch of other people that have like similar interests. So it's like, of course you're going to socialize and make friends. And
ideally it's like, thanks to jiu-jitsu, for example, that's a positive. That third place is a positive space.
For sure.
Because it could just as easily be like, I don't know.
It could be the bar.
Organized crime.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. Breakdance fighting.
It could be,
Isn't that capoeira?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there you go.
Karate concert.
Yeah. No, exactly. I think, I think jiu-jitsu's, I think people go too hard on it, like, oh, jiu-jitsu saved my life. I'm like, well, maybe, maybe that's the case, but I think too many people jump to that conclusion, I think maybe jiu-jitsu kind of like allowed you to have people that you get to socialize with and find that occupational balance, and where you kind of like a bit more of a balanced lifestyle, where you get to exercise, you get to talk with some people that are like-minded, you get to forget about your troubles for a little bit, quiet the noise. I saw your video on that. That was cool. Thought that was cool.
100%, yeah. It's funny because I think I agree, like you find like-minded people, but jiu-jitsu is definitely not the only modality, but like it's one where definitely there's also people that will have like wildly different opinions on life outside. Yeah. But you find that common ground. Right? Where like that doesn't matter quite so much. Like maybe you're not in the same Facebook chat.
Maybe he's a flat earther, you know what I mean? Like, maybe. You never know.
But when it comes to being on the mat, like, you know, you're like thick as thieves, right?
Yeah, 100%. Right? Yeah.
So that's the thing.
Yeah, I think it's weird because like I have some friends that I see outside of jiu-jitsu as well. But I would say the majority of the people who I enjoy spending time with at jiu-jitsu, they're mostly jiu-jitsu friends, I would say, although a few of them, like yourself, have kind of like bled into my everyday life, and it's more of a, but again, I think statistically your chances of meeting people that are cool or that have similar interests are like much higher, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's like, I tell this to guys that are like dating sometimes, it's like they don't like the bar, but they go to the bar to try to pick up women, and I'm like,
that doesn't work.
It doesn't work, man. Like, like you're not going to find someone that has the same interests.
I do go to jiu-jitsu to pick up people, but in the literal sense.
Sense, exactly. Yeah. True.
That's funny. It's nice because I think like, you also have this passport that is like, is a global citizenship where you can go anywhere there is jiu-jitsu. And then, chances are, unless you go about it really the wrong way, or it's maybe a school that's very, very xenophobic, like 90% of the time, there's a welcoming space.
Yeah, 100%.
Potentially excellent training partners.
And like I've traveled.
You were in Australia, right?
Yeah, I went to Australia. That was great. That allowed me to meet all sorts of really cool people from all over. Like, my best friend in Australia, she was from Scotland, and we met through jiu-jitsu, and like I met a guy from Chile in jiu-jitsu and stuff, and it really is a passport. Like me and my wife did our honeymoon in Ireland, or no, sorry, I proposed in Ireland. My bad. Sorry, babe. I got that wrong. I didn't bring a gi. I brought no gi stuff.
Edit that part out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We went to where were we? We were in Galway. Yeah, we were in Galway. Anyways, and I hadn't trained in like a week. You know what I mean? So I was like chomping at the bit, and I was like, So I found an academy that had like an open mat. I think it was like a Friday or a Saturday or whatever. And I just kind of dropped in. I was a brown belt at the time. I was like, hey, do I have to pay? They're like, no, man, you're good. You know, so that was cool. And then we trained. And afterwards, they're like, yo, you guys want to grab some food? Yeah. So we got food. And then they recommended a bar we should check out. Nice. We ended up like getting like local Gaelic music. Like, it's just...
Yeah, it's so cool. You might not have known about.
Dude, if I hadn't done jiu-jitsu, if I hadn't gone to this academy and just tried to like get some rounds in, I would have not known about this cool spot. I wouldn't have met these nice people. You know what I mean? And it really does. Like, it brings you together. 100%.
Yeah, I can confirm. Also, like for me at the time it was capoeira, but like now jiu-jitsu, going through almost every single country there was a school. You know what I mean? And every single city. So like. I can't tell you how many places, like whether it was a restaurant or like a hike or some recommendation, in some cases there's even places to stay, like, you know what I mean? Like it's just this thing that you share with people. So. Yeah,
that's what's cool about jiu-jitsu. So we don't really compared to judo, for example, we don't really have like open mats. It doesn't really exist, right? It's always a structured class and it's not as conducive to just like chilling out after, I find. Whereas like, I think the vibe of an open mat is a bit more laid back, and it allows you to kind of like get more of a social thing going afterwards if you do end up meeting some people and stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with the approach that judo takes. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, in my experience, if I go to another country and I go to a judo class, it's most likely going to be a structured class. We're going to, the class is going to be it's going to be a proper class, an hour of class, 30 minutes of randori, whatever. And afterwards, everybody's going home. Right. No one's going to the bar after to have a drink. It's not, or out to food. It just doesn't. It's not the same vibe. You know what I mean? Fair enough. I find the open mats are kind of more laid back and open, and it leads to more of these social interactions that are a bit more. Yeah. Which is awesome, dude. It's like I don't know if it's the same in capoeira or.
100%.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's definitely like. There's the roda, which is like the circle where the actual game of capoeira takes place.
Okay.
And that is there's music that's involved, right? And there's a communication that's happening with the two players inside the game, but there's also communication and,
that's cool.
interaction happening in the circle, and like everybody has a part to play throughout the whole game / ritual. So that like, there's definitely a lot of like hanging out before, and that's also like much like Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is Brazilian, right? So there's this vibe that like it's not a big deal if you're not exactly on time. I'm going to say that as politically correctly as I can.
Listen up, you purple belts. All right.
But yeah, purple belts.
Show up for the warm up.
Did you see the meme of well, initially it's Gandalf, but then what's his name? Post Malone.
Yeah.
Said it during one of his concerts. He's like, a wizard is never late. It always arrives exactly when he's needed most.
Yeah, for sure.
But then somebody like photoshopped a
purple belt. Yeah. Well,
I was guilty as well.
You know, dude, it's like, it's funny because it's a joke, but it's so true.
Oh yeah.
Like there's one guy in my class, they're always late.
Yeah.
And it's always like right after the warm up for some reason.
100%. Yeah.
Always. And he's, you know, whatever. It is what it is. But every time it happens, I have a little bit of giggle inside, you know. Like,
yeah.
I'm not too, it's funny though. Yeah, you're right. Because in judo, if I'm teaching a judo class, someone's like super late, it bothers me way more.
Oh yeah. Well, that's weird.
I don't know. I think it's because of the traditional background. You know, we 100%. Bow in and we do like everything in a specific way kind of thing. Yeah. And I think with jiu-jitsu, it's a bit more laid back. So when guys are late, I'm like, you know, I kind of give them a like, you know, and it's like, it's not a big deal. Yeah. It's really not a big deal. You know?
But if you were traveling, say, for example, like as you said, in Scotland, Ireland?
We were in Ireland at the time.
Yeah, so if you're in Ireland, you don't know anybody, you're going to this judo class and you realize like whatever happened, you're going to be 30 minutes late, you're probably not going to go, right?
No, exactly. Yeah, I wouldn't.
But an open mat, you could still show up.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
It's a different culture.
Yeah. But I like it. I hope jiu-jitsu never loses that. I think like it makes it that much more approachable for people. Like I don't know statistically if it really is the martial art that's like blowing up the most, but
I mean, if it's not, then tell me which one it is. Cause it's right
I just feel like it's expanding so quick, dude. And like, it's crazy how fast the sport is evolving. Like the techniques that were like meta, like 5 years ago are just like blown out of the water now.
Yeah, 100%.
It's crazy. Like, and that's what's kind of like most entertaining about it, I think, is because we're kind of living that golden era where we're, you know, obviously we're not training in the Gracie garage or whatever, but I'm just saying we're like living the explosion of the sport. You know, I think, for example, like judo has been around for so long, and I'm just talking about judo law because it's what I know. Yeah. But it's been around for so long that to some extent, it's not solved, but it's been explored thoroughly. You know,
right.
Like
I see what you're saying.
If you ask any judo black belt, if they could only execute one technique and be very good at one technique, I'll give you $100. Okay, that like more than 50% of them are going to say uchimata. It's the king of techniques. Right. It works regardless of weight category. You could do it as a small person on a big person. It's like the Swiss Army knife. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like super, super high success rate. It's the coolest technique, period. Okay, fight me. All right. Uchimata is the coolest thing.
It's also what every Brazilian Jiu Jitsu player that doesn't know, terminology call, like every single, you've seen that one too, right? They do a hip toss, like, oh, Uchimata.
Yeah.
Ankle pick, Uchimata.
Yeah. Me and my buddy, so my business partner, Vince, he always like makes joke where it's like, oh, I did a Kukushi Mapupu, I did like, double dragon rooster sushi, whatever, right? It's like, the names don't really matter all that much. But, so anyways, all I was saying was the sport's kind of like, we know the techniques. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like no one is going to invent a new judo throw tomorrow.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it might, but
tempted to
right. But I'm just saying, like, whereas jiu-jitsu, I'm like, some new thing could come out tomorrow.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And it's going to revolutionize the sport. It's going to change the meta completely. Yeah. You know what I mean? It might be something that they stole from another sport.
Yeah.
But
or like a hybrid of some other technique.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, the odds are that something brand new is going to happen, and the whole meta is going to shift, and there's going to be this, this gold rush for whatever technique or a variation of it, or how you do it, or whatever. Yeah. The chances in jiu-jitsu for that to happen are like pretty significant. Yeah. With judo, tiny. Yeah. It's been around so long. So I think the fact that we're living that innovation is what makes it so exciting.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree.
Like every week there's something new, or there's a new way of doing something, or, you know, you're hearing about a new guy that's like just dominating in Europe.
Yeah. You can tell just by the number of instructionals that are out there.
Dude, yeah.
Although there was a joke that like, because there's one instructional, I think it's very niche, like, what is it? I think it's like a financial advisor style instructional for the gym owners, right?
Oh yeah,
but it makes sense. If you think about it, right?
Yeah,
like,
I think it's a great idea. I think a lot of jiu-jitsu academies like get started up and then they don't kind of go about it the right way. And then, not that I would know, I'm just, you know, I've seen some YouTube videos of people, you know, talking about like, hey, what happened to my academy? And then they explain, you know, financial reasons, this and that. And then, you know.
Yeah, episode 1, season 1 of the Grappling Monthly Podcast, actually, Professor Ude talks about.
Oh, he does? Nice.
Just like in his journey, you know, having seen like the top competitors have gyms that do really well and top competitors that have gyms that like fall apart, and realizing that it has nothing to do with their skill in the art form per se, because at that point it turns to be
it's a business. You know, it's a business. And I think like the number one tip that I've seen for people that are starting academies is always like try to rent a space from an existing academy if you can. Because if you rent, for example,
low overhead,
right, exactly, and if you before you have the student base, especially, you know what I mean? Like when you're starting an academy, if you have like 4 guys that are really consistent, that's impressive. Yeah, that's impressive. You know, some of these big academies now have classes with 50, 60 guys in them, girls too. But I'm just saying, like 50 people. But they started off with nothing, you know what I mean? And during that weird startup period, like you need to be able to like survive that, you know? And then once you kind of have a decent student base, I think it's a machine that feeds itself. Yeah. You know, people talk, people come to class, they see that there's like this energy in the class because there's so many, people and stuff. So
that's something that I want to pick up on that you alluded to, when we were talking about the third space, how like for a lot of people now, home and work is the same space. Yeah, right? Man.
It is for me. Yeah.
And I think, post-pandemic, it's a reality that like, will probably continue.
I want it to be that way. Don't get me wrong. I got, going back to the office is dreadful, in my opinion, at least in my sector.
Fair enough. But I mean, there's a little bit less human connection.
100%,
with at least like strangers and stuff.
Yeah, you need, like if I, for example, didn't have jiu-jitsu and all I did was work from home and then, stay at, like
work out in the garage.
I don't think it'd be very healthy. I think you need to, whatever your outlet is, you need to have somewhere where you go and you get to interact with people socially, to some extent. Like I know some people are more social than others. I'm not someone who, like if I socialize, I need to recharge for a few days.
We're both introverts, so
Like
after this, like I'm just driving.
I'm extroverted, but then afterwards, I don't want to do another extroverted thing the next day. I just want to like play video games and stay inside or whatever.
At the beginning of the pandemic, I was like, I'm gonna catch up on Final Fantasy and all of these different games, and then you know what I mean. But then after a while, I was like, people, where are the people?
Dude. When the pandemic hit, I was like, dude, it's gonna be awesome, bro. I'm gonna game with my boys every night. We're gonna be on Discord. It's gonna be this. And then, 4 months later, you're like, okay, I'm getting a little depressed here. So I think you need that. You need to see other people. So I think for those that are working from home, if you're looking for an activity to do, it doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu. It could be any martial art. It could be volleyball, whatever. But you just need to do a thing. It could be a book club, whatever.
But you have the added advantage in jiu-jitsu of somebody potentially sweating directly in your eye.
Or your mouth.
Which a meager book club cannot offer.
True, man.
Unless there's something I don't know.
Dude, I lost my hair, and that's my biggest thing now. My sweat just like drips way more. I got to be like cognizant of it.
Yeah, we both have beards, and sometimes, it gets stuck.
Yeah.
Anyways, story short.
No, that's true.
It's actually the exact reason why my wife does not do jiu-jitsu, because she's like, that shit's disgusting.
Yeah. It's hard to convince. So and this is not a generalization I'm making, whatever, but in my experience, for women, gi is much more appealing.
I think a lot of people, like the morning crowd. Yeah, we have a gi and no gi class. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
We have like a gi and no gi class, and the gi classes in the morning tend to do better. Yeah, and it feels like that early rising crowd is one that prefers, like, I don't know if it's the warmth or the.
I think it's the heat, man. Yeah, for sure.
Maybe, or the separation. Like, I don't know.
I think obviously, like, if you're new to the sport and you're not used to it, like, I think if you have a background in martial arts and you're used to people kind of like, being in your space and that exchange of sweat and stuff, like, to me at this point, like, it doesn't matter, dude. You know, like I'll put my hand in someone's armpit. Like, I don't care, you know, but I think for a lot of people that are starting, it's kind of like, you know, it's a bit more, it feels a bit more cleanly to do it in the gi, perhaps, you know, a little bit less like personal, you know. I could imagine if I was like, you know, 135-pound woman and I'm like some big sweaty dude gets side control 100%
on me. North south, bro. Like, my wife was like, you realize that's 69. I'm like, it is, but it isn't.
Yeah.
But it is.
But it is. You know, it's like, how gay is jiu-jitsu? Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Nice. So we talked a little bit about gym ownership just now, which is a great segue to the business side of things.
Yeah.
So let me make sure this is clearly visible.
Yes, sir.
It's beautiful shirt.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's one of our first shirts we put out.
Nice. Yeah.
Pretty happy about it.
Tell me about Bait Apparel, man.
So
how'd you get started, and who are your partners and all that?
Yeah, so my buddy Vince and my buddy Casey, so Vincent Hull and Casey Leahy, they kind of had this idea for a jiu-jitsu apparel company for a while, and they had been talking to me about it and stuff. And obviously, I thought the idea was great. They had some like really cool ideas. I think our approach is kind of put more of a comical spin on the whole very serious, you know, dragons and sharks and geese and
right.
You know, like the logos are very yeah. I think a lot of people, you know, they're like, oh, I'm a shark, whatever. Like the ground is my ocean. Yeah. I think we kind of took more of a laid back approach to it, a bit more of a comical spin on the whole thing. We didn't want to take it too serious. But I think ultimately the goal is to like deliver a product that we're really proud of. Okay. And so we started, So Vince had all these great ideas. Casey takes care of more of the business side and stuff. And they needed someone, however, that was able to do designs and whatnot. And I've been working in tech for years. I've been doing a lot of like virtual staging on Photoshop, whatever. And then I kind of like looked into it and I was like, yeah, you know what? I could probably do this. So talked to the guys and we worked on designs together for the first time. And then they brought me in as a partner. So then we're kind of able to execute the vision. Our website is baitapparel.com. Our slogan is free underhooks. The idea is like we bait people into traps in jiu-jitsu. That's the bait jiu-jitsu name, you know? Yeah. And then free underhooks we just thought was hilarious, you know, because like I'll give you an underhook. Yeah. I like Goshi's coming, but I'll give you an underhook. Exactly. You know what I mean? Yeah. So and we've been supporting local fighters, just trying to like get the name out there. So overall, we're just really proud of the stuff we're putting out. So if you guys are interested in like some really high quality gear that's got like a really comical spin on it, that's got some cool designs and stuff, just check it out. Yeah. And like the three of you guys got to know each other through jiu-jitsu. Yeah, exactly. So Vince was actually my no-gi coach for years, and through the years we became friends. We got close, and then Casey was one of our training partners. Yeah. It was crazy. So okay, there's kind of a funny story about Casey. So I remember he was a white belt when I started as well, and it's like my first jiu-jitsu class. Dan was teaching, and he like asked Casey to be his uke, you know what I mean? And I was thinking like, oh, this guy's probably like really good, you know? Like, oh, shit, you know? And he's wearing like, he had like spats on. And I was like, it wasn't something I was used to seeing. Right, you know what I mean? So I was like, oh, damn, he must be really good. And turns out he's a white belt, you know? Yeah. He's a purple belt now, but I'm just saying. Anyway, so met through jiu-jitsu. And then again, we were talking about the third place and how you meet people and stuff. And there you go. Now I'm in a business venture with some friends. And honestly, it's just been a blast, man. It's super fun. Lots of challenges, you know? I think if you've never been a business owner, which none of us have, we're trying to figure it out, you know? And we've made some mistakes along the way, but fair enough. Ultimately we have a product, we're able to ship it out and everything, and our pricing is very fair. So so you're saying your focus is, you know, the lighter side of jiu-jitsu, and also a high quality product at a price point that's affordable for everyday 100%. Right? Like that. For sure. I think a lot of I don't know, like a lot of the gear that's out there is awesome. It's so sick. It looks amazing, but then sometimes the quality is not always the best. The rashi feels very thin, for example. I don't know, right? I'm not trying to throw anybody on the bus, but I think our rashis are like the rashis and the shorts specifically. I think, you know, which is at the core of our brand. Obviously, we're a grappling brand, we're a jiu-jitsu brand. Don't do gis yet. We'll see, but but that to me like is a staple, and we've kind of figured that out, and we're really happy with it. So, and then obviously we got shirts and sweaters and all sorts of cool stuff as well. So. Nice, It was baitapparel.com, right? Yes, sir. I'll put the link on the. Do it.
So yeah, so you said, you know, you guys made some mistakes.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, well, actually, before that, we were talking about mindset, right? And how, like, you know, you're into martial arts, you're into judo, and then you got exposed to jiu-jitsu, and then your mindset shifted again when it came time to start sharing your knowledge and then teaching techniques to students and whatnot. Explain to me, like, the mindset, if there was one, like a shift in your mindset, or like what changed when it came time to look at the business side of things.
Yeah, it's
now
hard.
You're not on the mat.
It was a rough transition, man, because well, rough, I don't know if I could call it rough, but like it was it's kind of an eye-opener, you know what I mean? Because you have to understand that, like, you know, jiu-jitsu for me was something that was always very, it came easy in the sense that, not that I was getting good easily. What I mean is, like, for me, it was a no-brainer. Like, I enjoyed training.
Right.
And as long as I showed up and I applied myself, I got better. And then teaching was fun as well. I just really enjoyed it. And then when you get into the business side of things, like, obviously, I think you have to carve a niche for yourself. You have to have something that other people don't, and it's very difficult because the market is extremely saturated.
Right.
And then obviously people are going to interact with you differently, you know, when it comes to things. Like, if you're training at a gym and they have their own branding and stuff, you know, like, that's going to cause some conflicts and stuff, which I understand completely. You know what I mean? They have their own business that they're running. So I'm just saying, there's a couple things like that we had to transition, because I think it's all fun and games until it becomes a business. And then it's like, okay, well, now there needs to be some separation there. There needs to be a certain approach that's not necessarily the very hang loose approach of jiu-jitsu that, you know, we've talked about earlier. Yeah. So that was kind of a shift, but I think, I think we transitioned well. And so that was just something that was like,
that's insightful. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I thought everybody was going to be like, you know, trying to push my stuff and, like, you know, help us out.
Oh, really?
But
it's a dog-eat-dog world out there.
Yeah, well, it's a business. It's a business. And no other business owner is going to go out of their way to help you out if it's going to, you know, impede on their own business, right? Yeah. And so obviously that was kind of one of the real, you know, clearly like a very noobish mistake, you know, like something that is very obvious for anybody who owns a business, you know what I mean? But that was an interesting transition for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And then the good news is, however, it's not a dojo, it's not an academy, right? So a lot of the drama that you would normally get, that we don't have to deal with all that, you know, like it's...
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, when it comes to... Because you mentioned the market is saturated, right? And I think that's
so saturated, dude. Yeah, it's crazy.
And like, anecdotally, like, I thought of a brand like years ago, and I never pulled the trigger. It's just used to be.
It's intimidating, man. It's super scary.
So how did you guys overcome that and, like, decide, you know what, let's just do this? Like,
well, what's cool about, I think what gave me I can't talk for the other guys, right? But for me personally was obviously, with launching a jiu-jitsu apparel company, what surprised me the most was, because we were doing everything ourselves, the actual cost of launching and, like, getting started and stuff was relatively reasonable.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we were doing everything ourselves. So we had a guy who did the printing, and then we made the designs ourselves. I'm not paying anybody to make designs, etc. We're, you know, so really we would order a certain amount of gear. And once we've recouped a bit of our cost, we order more, or we work on a new design or whatever. So it was never like, okay, it's going to cost you $50,000 to get started. Right. You know, especially with like things like Shopify now and all these. Because
you don't have like a brick and mortar location.
No, we don't have a physical location. Like, obviously we keep the gear in a physical location, and eventually we'd like to have a distribution center to kind of simplify everything. But what's good is most of our sales have always been, you know, like, you know, word of mouth, or you know, maybe we've done rash guards specifically for certain academies as well. That's been a great source of income for us. So because obviously we can make any rash guard, and people like the cut of our stuff. Nice. So sometimes we've talked to certain academies and they needed a new rash guard made. I'm like, great, let's chat. What do you have in mind? I'll work on a design, run it by them, etc. And what's great about that is, you know, especially for our business model, is it guarantees the sales. You know, so like, oh, cool, I need 50 rash guards. They give us the sizing that they need, like how much of each size, and then that's it. That's done. You know, the rest of that is on their side. You know. So relatively speaking, what's great is the cost of getting started and stuff was relatively low, which gave me a lot of confidence. Because worst case, it's like, okay, well, we lost a little bit of money.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world. I didn't have to fork up a large sum to rent a space to, you know, all these things. Yeah. So that's been great. And then, you know, platforms like Shopify make it so, I'm not sponsored. It's not a plug. I'm just saying, you know, I think e-commerce platforms, they make it a lot easier.
Oh, 100%. Even just like, like getting started with Grappling Monthly, like on being on YouTube, the editor is decent quality if you don't use CapCut or anything else. Again, not sponsored.
No,
but, you know what I mean? Like
Vegas or whatever.
You get analytics, you get all these types of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, so I can tell real time if my content is doing well, and like all these things that you wouldn't necessarily have just out of the box for free. So
I think obviously, I think the tools now are more advanced than they've ever been. You know what I mean? I think anybody who has a decent understanding of Photoshop, Illustrator, AI, image generation, whatever, you can make some really, really cool stuff. You know what I mean? The tools are out there. You just got to do a bit of research. I think you can teach yourself anything nowadays. You know what I mean? For free. There's so much information that's free out there. So whatever your discipline, whatever thing you're trying to teach yourself, whatever skill you're trying to pick up, whether it's drawing, it's, I don't know, like e-commerce, you know, Photoshop, Illustrator, all these things, I literally taught myself. Well, I taught myself. Amazing content creators on YouTube taught me. But I'm just saying it costs nothing. You know what I mean?
Nice.
And as long as like all that information is available, so I think as long as you can find some time where you can dedicate a little bit of time every single day, you can figure out most of these things on your own. You don't have to hire someone to do everything. You know what I mean? Obviously we hire when someone has a specific skill set, you know, like I can't draw, for example. So if you want something drawn, we're gonna talk to people that have that skill. You know?
Of course.
But I could probably teach myself to draw if I had a year or two. You know?
That skill is.
So it's always about, you know, like the cost sink, I guess. You know what I mean, in that situation. But I think what's so cool is that most of the skills you can kind of teach yourself, and you know, from there you can try to maintain a low cost of operation. And that gives you like a really good standpoint to move forward, because it takes a lot of the stress out. You know, you can move at your own pace. Like obviously maybe the approach of dropping 50K on like professionals and marketing and all stuff, maybe might have worked. You know, I don't know, but it's like, do I want to risk that when the market is like hyper saturated?
Right, exactly. And I gotta say, I kind of like the grassroots approach.
Yeah, for sure.
Friends working together and stuff. You guys are partnering with, you're sponsoring athletes. You're also partnering with academies that are, you know, like, so you might print like another academies. Like it's not necessarily.
Well, if you have a jiu-jitsu academy, for example, and you have an idea for a really cool rash guard, and you're like, you know what, I don't really know how to go about making this rash guard happen, for example, or you have an idea, but it's not like fully fleshed out yet. We can work together. We'll get it looking exactly how you want it, and then we'll get it to you. You know, so it takes a lot of that out. And then I think a lot of people have great ideas, and sometimes they just don't know how to, like, they don't really have the outlet for it. So we offer that outlet, and then plus you get like your own custom rash guard, which is sick, you know, which is really, really cool. And I think that's what's been great about it, is that ultimately this has been like super fun for me. You know, at the end of the day, I'm doing things that I enjoy doing with my friends. And if it ends up blowing up, cool. And if it doesn't, I was doing cool stuff I like to do with my friends.
I like that.
So, you know, for me,
it's all centered around jiu-jitsu too, which is kind of
exactly. And we're giving back to the community, you know, just sponsoring these athletes and helping guys out. Dude, it's an awesome feeling. Like, it's great, you know. Like, I don't know, you're going to a tournament, you're going to an MMA fight, you need a bit of sponsorship, whatever. Like, for sure, we'll give you some money, and we'll see what we can do, you know. And I think giving back is awesome, because I mean, so many people have dedicated time and resources to me in my jiu-jitsu career, my judo career and stuff.
Of course,
So giving back is nice, man.
I think what's interesting, and it's something you said earlier that I picked up on, it's just like, you know, you referred to the grappling right now as like kind of the golden age, and
I think so.
Like, it's definitely in like
it's a boom. It's blowing up, man.
Right now. And I remember like back when, you know, a little bit earlier, let's say 20 years before, especially in MMA when it was smaller. You know, around the time of the first UFC, maybe a little bit later. You had a lot of people wanting to go towards it, but it's like by the time an amateur fighter would be finished their camp, you know what I mean, ready to fight and everything, they would be in the hole, like, you know, however many thousands of dollars, rather than making money. Whereas now, like in a jiu-jitsu event, Like there was a
we're starting to get paid now, which is
that's what I'm saying. I mean, yeah, I've never,
yeah. Competitors are starting to get paid now.
Nobody wants to see me compete.
No, exactly. Same. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like the competition level is that much higher. But it's also, I feel like so Fionn Davies, right, who like I'm a huge fan, and it's just amazing.
Yeah.
She said something recently which I thought was really interesting, which was that like up until recently, the women didn't have really good storytelling, right? Like and
in jiu-jitsu
specifically, right? Like, and I. Like she went on to elaborate on what she meant, and it stuck with me. The reason being that, like, I realized that the reason that, like, I watched Georges St-Pierre, for example, when he was fighting. Well, he was Canadian, right? Like, come on. But
that's our boy right there,
right? My man. But the other part is like, it kind of felt like attached to his story, right?
Yeah.
And then it helped that like Montreal is just over here. But
It felt he feels human,
Exactly, right? And then now you can also get that from people from all around the world because there's these great like UFC embedded and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So you get to know their stories, but there was less of that in jiu-jitsu and even less for women in jiu-jitsu. But now, like, I follow like Adele Fornerino's like story and like Brianna St. Marie, right? From around the world.
100%.
And so you get, I personally, like, as a spectator, get excited about these characters, right? These people that are also like fighters that I'm either in their corner or I'm never really rooting against anybody. But
no.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And so that I feel is something that like is really cool that you're getting involved in, but via Bait Apparel, right? Like,
yeah. Well, I think which, when it comes to the storytelling for women specifically, or, athletes in general, I think even smaller events now have got these amazing production qualities because the tools are just getting easier to use and et cetera. And like, we got some people that are even local jiu-jitsu tournaments, sometimes they have lighting and all sorts of things. Like, dude, that's awesome. You know what I mean? Like, and
you mean it's not in a community center?
No, exactly. Yeah. It's not in some dude's backyard. Yeah.
What is it? Street beefs?
Yeah. Street beefs. Yeah. Yo, that's cool.
Shout out Street.
Yeah. I think there's like a Russian league too, King of the Streets, which is literally like MMA and like warehouses. Is it the one where they're
surrounded by hay?
Dude, no. There's
You've seen that one, the bare knuckle one?
Yeah.
That's
that's crazy. No, King of the Streets is like a legitimate. We're veering off course here, but it's like an underground MMA fight league on YouTube. And it's like they're literally like fighting MMA, but on cement floors.
Oh, jeez,
dude, no. It's wild, man. Anyways, so all I had to say that no, it's not
sponsored by.
They're not. Yeah. They're not these small. They're not these small like events anymore. Things are getting legitimized, and I think honestly, and the judo community might hate me for saying this, dude, but like the fact that there are multiple entities that are privately owned that are organizing jiu-jitsu tournaments is amazingly healthy for the sport.
Right.
Like judo is a government subsidized thing, and the advantage of that is that competing is dirt cheap. Okay.
Gotcha. Right.
You go to a tournament, it's like $25. You guaranteed 4 fights. What's there to lose? You know, other than like injury or whatever. But I'm just saying like that reality is there regardless of the discipline. You know. So it makes it really easy to approach and compete in and all these things. Now keep in mind, I'm not talking about nationals. I'm talking about, smaller tournaments.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
In jiu-jitsu, sorry, just to get back to judo tournaments, they're really like poorly organized sometimes, you know, like I weighed in at 9 a.m. and I fought at 4 p.m. and they didn't know when I was going to fight. They never knew. So the whole time I'm not trying to eat too much. I'm not trying to like cool down too much. So all day I'm like semi warming up. And then at the end of the day, I haven't eaten, I'm dehydrated, and now I'm going to compete 4 matches in a row. It's super disorganized. Whereas with jiu-jitsu tournaments, especially with, I think it's Smooth Comp is the app that's like, dude, it's like, cool, you're going to be at 9:15, you're going to fight at 9:45.
Yeah.
You know who's in your weight division, you know who's there. You're like, it's, obviously the downside is that price of competing is much higher.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's intimidating. Right. And my issue with this is single elimination tournaments.
Yeah.
If you're going to be charging someone $150 to compete and then charge an extra, like, I don't know, $80 for the affiliation fee with whatever organization you are.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm new to jiu-jitsu. I've never competed. I'm nervous. I'm anxious. I'm going to compete at white belt. Okay.
Yeah.
First match, I lose.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks. See you later.
Cool. Go home. Yeah. Do I feel like competing again?
Probably not.
Never. Yeah. But if I go and I'm guaranteed 4 matches, even if I lose all 4, I learned something in each of those matches.
Yeah.
I'm like, cool. Next time's going to be better. I got my money's worth. I feel like I got my money's worth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. 100%.
Like, that's the only thing I think can be improved on, because otherwise, the jiu-jitsu tournaments are organized so well.
Yeah.
Like, things are like on the clock, you know, when you're fighting things, there's just, the organization's way better, you know, and that's because they're privately owned.
Right.
So I think that's a huge boon for the jiu-jitsu, you know, the jiu-jitsu scene in general.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a tangent, but you know.
No, I mean, it's relevant to the business side of fights, right? Like it's funny because in California there's I think, I don't know the judo organization that well, but beyond USA
can't help
Judo,
you there either. Yeah,
but beyond USA Judo, I think there's a number of like local tournaments and things like that. So I think
there
it might
are?
be different. Yeah.
Oh man, maybe.
But
maybe the States is like way better. Maybe I need to move to the States to compete, man.
I mean, we have a spare room if you want to just test it out. You know, bring the whole family, and then
maybe
just gotta deal with the dog.
Maybe. I'm allergic, so.
Oh damn.
You had me until you said.
Yep.
You know?
That's it.
Yeah.
But so basically, like, as far as Bait Apparel is concerned, you guys just got started, right?
Yeah, we started. We started. I would say this year we really started. Well, this year, obviously not fiscal year or whatever, but
I mean, you make your own fiscal year, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Like Microsoft.
That's a good point.
Like, we started in September.
That's a good point.
Whatever.
Yeah, no, we started. I would say we've been at it for a solid year now, and it's honestly, man, it's been a really positive experience. We've made some mistakes along the way that cost us some money and stuff, and but
growing pains.
Yeah, 100 exactly. Yeah. And all this money that I'm, these costs that I lost or that didn't really, pan out or whatever. I always think of them as like the cost of my education.
Yeah.
To kind of stay.
I like that.
Just keep a positive spin on it, because otherwise I think it can be pretty discouraging. Makes you want to quit and stuff. Like, it's difficult. It's difficult. And I think, again, like, because the market is so saturated and there's all these, like, dude, you're a brand new jiu-jitsu apparel brand, and you're trying to compete with like Scramble and Show Your Roll and all these guys that have professional athletes that are sponsored. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
So you kind of,
you got to start somewhere.
Yeah. And you can't get discouraged. You know what I mean? Like, ultimately, at the end of the day, like, I try to keep in mind that we're doing good for the community. We're supporting local fighters. I'm having fun in the process. When I see someone wear my stuff, dude, best feeling ever.
Yeah.
And when they give me positive feedback on it, again, best feeling ever. You get that really beautiful sense of gratification,
Yeah.
So that's been like a really big thing for me.
Nice. I like that. I only quickly put on the t-shirt, and it's very comfortable. So.
It's soft. It's breathable.
You heard it here first or second.
Yeah. Yeah.
One last promo for Bait. Tell me, the website, how do we get in touch with you guys?
Yeah.
If you're an academy and you want, what's the best way to reach you guys?
Yeah. So if you guys want to reach us, website is baitapparel.com. If you want to get any of our merch, free underhooks on Instagram, as well as freeunderhooks@gmail.com if you have any inquiries. I just want to shout out some of the fighters we've been supporting recently. So shout out to Julien Leblanc, Yohan Nanez, Aaron Jeffries, as well as Samuel El Masri. So
nice.
Yeah. So thanks for having me, man. Really.
No, my pleasure, man.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I had to get the phone out. You know what I mean?
I love it.
Yeah.
Man. First of all, thank you so much for
sure, man. I had a good time. Yeah.
Yeah, this is awesome. I mean, the added advantage to hang out with a friend is like fantastic, but also getting to know, a little bit about Bait Apparel, how you guys got started, and then sharing your story also.
Yeah. I think it's a pretty common story, man. I think a lot of people, they just train jiu-jitsu because it's a blast and they enjoy it, and eventually they get a black belt, and I used to compete a bit, not anymore. I'm perfectly fine with it though. I kind of I have a family.
I got 32, bro. You're still young.
Yeah, I know, for sure. I'm just saying, I got a career, I got a family, whatever. Like, I train when I can, and it makes me happy. So I think that
makes me happy to see you guys doing so good.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Yeah.
And that's it.